How do we navigate uncertainty? And better yet, how do we stay ahead of the curve of uncertainty so that we're being proactive rather than reactive? My name is Grant Christofely. I'm the Director of Workplace Strategy for M Moser Associates in North America. And like many of you, I set out into this industry to create glamorous things, to revolutionize work, and to create spaces that people could actually do their life's best work in. However, about 5 years ago, I became really disenfranchised with Workplace. They had become cold and just generally not really impressive, and they failed to support people doing their life's best work. And honestly, our marketplace is always changing. It's always evolving, and businesses need to keep up with this. They need to keep up so that they can stay ahead of the curve. However, our workplaces just simply are not supporting us or our organizations in doing that. And furthermore, COVID-19 really widened the gap between workplace and performance. I'm not alone in this sentiment. We've all seen these articles. They're just plenty. I honestly just Googled why workplace is terrible, and it just popped up. And organizations and employees alike feel this way. They share this sentiment. So how can workplaces work harder for us? Where is the balance between employee needs and organizational imperatives? To answer this question, we actually have to understand, do workplaces have value for our organizations? I don't think we have quite a clear answer on that, so we went out and we started looking. During the pandemic, a group of researchers studied the correlation between place, choice, and performance. And what they found was the highest performers were actually those who had choice of where to work and chose to come into the workplace at least some of the time. So if choice and place are important to employee performance, why are employees coming into the office? Why are they choosing to show up? Well, in our own study across 15,000 employees, we found that 85% of those employees said their number one reason to come in was actually other employees. It's pretty impressive, right? Only 15% said that they would come in to do focus work as their number one reason. So if people are coming in to see each other, is there any value in that, right? We kind of anecdotally think so, but again, we've never really had a lot of research that says so. We've always talked about the water cooler moment, chance encounters, these moments that we feel are good, but we've never really had research. So fortunately, a group of American and Japanese researchers studied this. And what they found was that teams that fostered serendipitous encounters were actually higher performing than their peer teams that did not. And some other really interesting things about these teams, they also had a stronger sense of community. They were more productive overall. They created more. And they also had higher economic value for their organizations. So in other words, serendipitous moments or chance encounters, these are hugely important to your organizations. So we set out in the beginning of this conversation to understand if the workplace had value to our organizations, and it turns out they have tremendous value, huge value. Recently, we were talking to about 30 CEOs from Fortune 500 companies a little earlier this year. And their sentiment across all of them was that the workplace is a device for employee performance, but employees aren't convinced of this, as we've probably all seen, and organizations are not reaping the benefit of the workplace. Our workplaces have fundamentally failed to help us navigate the uncertainty we're experiencing today. Our people, processes, and places need to adapt to the world changing around us. And this is much more than just creating flexible offices like you're seeing on screen now, though those are wonderful. This is a fundamental mindset shift in how we think about, how we use, and how we design workplaces. So over the past decade, our team has been designing adaptable workplaces. And we've learned a few things. The first is that adaptivity is a mindset. We have to start with our minds. The second is the most successful workplaces are designed first as a work experience and then as a place. And finally, we have to design systems of adaptivity rather than just static places. I'm going to start with adaptivity as a mindset. And about 5 years ago, I was working with a financial institution, and this is not the outcome, this is the starting place. We were working with a financial institution, and parallel to us redesigning their HQ in New York City, they were also undergoing an organizational transformation. And an imperative of this organizational transformation was that they wanted teams and leaders to actually shift and adapt when the marketplace and their client demands around them changed. So, in other words, how do we shift our mindsets and our behaviors to adapt to our changing environments? So this organization also had a few outcomes that they wanted. And the first was that they wanted to enable the people closest to the problem to actually solve the problem. They wanted to drive innovative solutions to unique client challenges. And finally, they wanted to differentiate themselves in a terribly crowded marketplace with their culture and their offering. So what we were able to design was an environment that actually quickly brought people together. One that enabled the adaptive behaviors that they were so longing for. And finally, one that broke down silos between groups so people could come together and innovate between groups. And the space we designed is actually really beautiful. It's a breath of fresh air. But more importantly, we actually spent a lot of time with leaders, with individual contributors, helping them correlate place and their work so that they understood why they were there, why they were using their workplace. Fundamentally, we built the capacity inside these people, in these teams, to think of the workplace as a multi-tool for performance, rather than simply somewhere you just show up. More recently, we've been working with a lot of organizations that we've historically delivered work for. And oftentimes, we're working with these organizations through a design guideline. I'm sure you're all familiar with what that looks like. And more recently than that even, these organizations are facing many of the challenges you're facing. COVID has changed work. Work modes just generally are changing. And they're asking us, they're coming to us and saying, what does the hybrid future of work look like? What does the workplace look like with all of this uncertainty? And so that's a really difficult challenge to face, but the place we like to start is actually to assemble a group of experts internal to the organization. We like to bring the best minds together and people who will actually be able to create and craft the workplace experience or the work experience for the organization. These are people like executive leadership's vision. This is talent strategy. These are people who understand the services and the offerings and the amenities that employees will have access to, that craft their understanding of how work happens. The next thing that we do is actually to work with business units. And what we want from the business units is to understand how teams come together and how each individual team creates value for the organization. This is really important so that we can start crafting microenvironments that allow teams to do their best work. And finally, we craft an inclusivity, wellness, and sustainability strategy. And this will ensure that there can be sustainable community across all the organizations that we work with. The outcome is really a space that supports the behaviors, the mindsets, and the work modes an organization wants their employees to have. It also enables employees to have better, more focused, more fruitful conversations with customers and clients, as well as visitors and partners. So we learned that if we start by crafting a work experience, we can craft better workplaces. We focused a lot on uncertainty, and this is something that I think we focus on because it's really difficult to solve for, and it feels like a roadblock. Headcounts, lease terms, adjacencies, and there's many more that I could list, but all of these things feel like roadblocks, right? They're very hard to plan for the future. So when we're designing across our clients' portfolios, we actually like to start with these things. We like to start with the uncertainty and with change. We believe that by designing for change first, we can actually help our clients navigate the uncertainty. We refer to this methodology informally as the living lab methodology. And early on in this methodology, when we were first developing it about a decade ago, we had to figure out how to design and operationalize an environment that was constantly changing. And so we started with furniture. And furniture is actually an easy place to start because we interact with it so much, and you can throw some casters on it and you can move it around, and as long as it's lightweight, it all works. But it actually wasn't enough. We felt like we were missing something. So we actually went to infrastructure next. We started playing with mobile power solutions and modular lighting and sensor systems that would tell us when, where, and how change needed to happen. But still, we weren't fulfilled, and we didn't feel like we really were solving the problems that we were facing. We felt like we were so focused on space that we really weren't seeing the whole puzzle of what a workplace and a workplace experience was. So we had to actually engineer our policies to support adaptability, our technology, as well as our processes, so that the whole ecosystem was designed for adaptability, that it fed off of each other and supported each other, so the whole experience was adaptable. In one such project that we're working on over the last 4 years, they've had a lot of change in their organization. They've had about 300% headcount growth. It's huge. In that time, we've also made 34 micro adjustments to the space to adapt to this change, as well as 8 major reconfigurations. And we've done all of this for under 3% of the original project budget. Now, we've had some great outcomes from this. Over that course of that four-year period, we've had 0% shutdown time due to COVID. We've had about a 50% day-over-day attendance rate in 2022, and we've had a 98% workplace satisfaction rating. It's huge. People are really happy with their workplace even after 4 years of being there. But we've learned a few things too, and we always love to learn and we need to learn. And so something that we fundamentally learned is that technology is as important, if not more important, than the built environment itself. This is what enables us to connect, and we have to do it in tandem with the physical environment, but technology is so important, we need to get it right. Second is we need to have smarter, more integrated buildings. They need to help us make decisions when decisions need to be made, but they're not going to make the decisions for us. However, we still need the information. And finally, we need a stronger emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. If we're not creating community for everybody, we're not creating community for anybody. Many organizations are wondering how to navigate the uncertainty we're facing today. We can no longer set and forget our workplaces. They need to work harder for us. They need to help us to adapt to the constantly changing world we live in. Over the past decade, our team has designed adaptive workplaces, and we've learned a few things. Adaptivity is a mindset. You have to design your work experience before you design your workplace. And you have to design systems of adaptability rather than static spaces. The future of work is staying ahead of the curve of uncertainty. I hope, as you go and you design your global portfolios, that you begin designing for adaptivity. Thank you.